Hello again, everyone. This is Zombie Kids Rule, and I'm back where I want to do the explanation tutorial for the turn-based movement experiments that I posted the demo of, I think, yesterday. And so I did tweak this some more. I did make some changes. I fixed a few things, and so I'm gonna do a very quick demo. Yeah, right here at the beginning, and then I'm going to go into the explanations. And the reason I'm doing this is because I've seen a number of posts recently on the RPG Maker Web.com forum where people are asking questions about how to do certain things, and I honestly think that some of this in the way I did some of these events would actually help some of those folks. So there's a lot here. There's a lot of different concepts, and so I do think there's a lot of pieces that could benefit people in different ways. So I'm just going to do this because I built it and I want to share it. And if it helps people, great. I'll put my caveats out there like I always do. As I've said before, I'm not an expert. I'm still a relatively new user of RPG Maker. Had no previous experience before I bought MZ, and I have no programming experience. So I am just learning RPG Maker MZ. I'm learning how to do things through events and scripting. I'm doing an online JavaScript course. I have not really experimented with plugins very much, except for a couple that come as default. And you've seen, if you've watched any of my previous videos, you may have seen a few of the plugins I highlight because I do use those. But again, not an expert. I'm not saying that what I'm showing is the best way to do something. I'm not saying it's the most efficient way to do something. I'm just showing that I was able to achieve what I wanted through events and scripts. And if that helps people, awesome. There may be a better solution. There may be simpler solutions through plugins. And like I said, I may learn more, and I may change the way I approach things, but I'm here to share. And of course, this map is actually fancier than I normally do. You've heard me say it before. I don't spend a lot of time on maps because I'm testing raw functionality. And in this one, I needed some obstacles to be able to basically make it so that the events weren't able to move to a spot where they're not allowed, right? Where they can't go into trees or the tower or any obstacle, right? So that's why this map has a little bit more. All right, so I'm going to do the quick play test again, and then I'll break down all the different pieces. You're going to see a lot of similarities to some of the things I've done before, and then some of these things hopefully you'll see that they build on each other. And so, I'll explain it kind of as we hit it. And then each time we see something, it doesn't have to be explained again. It's just the same as it was, say, earlier in the event that I was showing. So first thing I want to do, though, is I want to show the region, because this is important because I'm using the region ID to as one of the checks about where the event can and cannot move. So when I'm moving the player, or when the player's moving an event, or whether they're moving a picture, I'm using the region ID as one check about, hey, you can't move there. That's not a free space. So I do want to show that. And I move this back to map. This is what it looks like. As you can see here, in theory, you can move behind the tent because you're walking behind it. You can't walk on any of these. You can't. Any of these obstacles are not something you can move to. Now, an event can't move there anyway, I don't believe. But I was also experimenting with moving pictures. So again, that's one of those. It's kind of like a consolidated, I guess, testing or experimenting here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start this, and again, go through it really quickly. Just in case you didn't watch the previous demo that I did. So I started with this guy. I'm just going to do him quick. Now the bear's moving on his own. I did this just to get a good handle on how many pixels I needed to change when I was moving the picture. So now we're going to do a event-based movement. So again, this was just using I'm sorry, not event-based, menu-based. So this is just using a menu, straight line, diagonal, to move the bear, the picture of the bear, and I was doing it to again um, to see how many pixels I needed to change the x and y coordinates. Okay, so I'm going to turn that to no. And then, okay, we're going to use the arrow keys. So now it's free movement, and it's just using arrow keys on the straight lines. Okay, and then now it's going to build in the using the speed, and then you can use the shift key to end your move early. So I'll go down, down, right, and then I'm going to press the shift key, and then still bear can still move. Do you want to end? Yes, I do. Okay, it's over. Do you want to try moving him again? Yeah, let's do that again. Make the bear your puppet. Okay, so we're moving around. Okay, and then do I want to do it again? No. Okay, so there was that. That was kind of just experimenting with moving a picture through using pixels for the x and y coordinates and moving it around on, for instance, like a chessboard or something. Then over here, this is actually experimenting with moving the pictures on the map. And so we get to do read first. And again, this is menu driven, so straight or diagonal. There is a way where you can put all of the directions on one option. So instead of doing it this way, the lazy way, I could have done it another way where all of the directions were in one list of options. I just didn't do that. So, again, we can move here, and this is picture based, right? So, um, diagonal, and then we'll basically he's back where he was. And then if I go back, it takes me back to the previous menu. And if I say end turn, it lets me end. I'd say I don't want to move anymore. Do I want to end this turn? Yes, I do. So now it's Teddy's turn, and you can see up here that the moves available are showing it. They were showing for read as well. So let's see, we're going to move Teddy diagonally. We'll go upper right, and then we'll do diagonal again, upper right, and then we'll just end turn. Okay, so Teddy has 3 moves left. Yes, I still want to end. And then do you want to move another round? No, I don't. And then, so now this is going to use the directional arrows that are on the screen and the escape button. Again, this is not fancy, but it's functional. So we'll push him 1, 2, 3. Whoops, got to click on it, and then up, and then just move him around. I get to move him around as much as I want because I'm not set on a timer, and then I'll go ahead and press escape. So now that ends that that option. So then I go over here, and this is what I was just messing around with before I started to do this. And now this is moving an event. So the other ones were moving pictures. Now, and that was using pixels to determine the x and y coordinates. Now this is going to move an event, which is where you use the tile designator of like 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 3, 1, 4, whatever. So now you get to move 10 times moving this arrows, and this is the actual event. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I try to move up, it won't let me, and then I'll go 10. Okay, now let's try something else. Let's use the speed option. You can move 6 tiles. Once you've moved that many times, you can either basically keep it or reset. All right, so now I have 6 moves. 1, I'm going to try to move up here. You would think you could move up here. No, you can't. It didn't take a move away, and you can't fit through there. Okay, so there's still 5 moves. 4, 3, 2. Again, if I try to move up this way, nope, can't do it. If I try to move up, nope, can't do it. Okay, if I try to move down, Nope, can't do it. It's an obstacle. Okay, boy's out of moves. You want to keep him? No, I'm going to reset. So he's going to jump back to where he was. He doesn't with the pictures. They flow backwards. With this one, they jump. So 1, 2, 3. If I try to go up, nope, can't talk, can't walk into read. Can walk past him. Can walk past him. If I try to step on the spirit here, nope, can't do that. So we'll go up. I'm out of moves. Do you want to keep them? I do want to keep them. Do you want to try again? Yes, because I want to go over here and try moving down this way. So we're going to go up and then down, and we're going to go behind the tent. Okay, moves out of moves. I want to keep them because I want to test this. I want to do it one more time. I have 4, so let's see. I can go down. Now, I can't move through here. Nope, too narrow for him to fit. He can't fit. Okay, and then that's it. All right, so out of moves, do you want to keep him? Actually, if I reset now, he's going to jump. Boop, he jumped back, and then that's it. Or actually, we'll just do this really quick. If I try to go sideways, it won't let me go through the border, and if I hit any of the trees or anything else, it won't let me go. I want to keep it. Yes, I do. Do I want to do it? Nope. Okay, so that concludes the testing. So the testing's all done. All right, so that was again just a quick refresher of what the demo looks like, of all the different things I experimented around with, and then of course and again I changed some things this morning. I kept changing, and I kept having to change more stuff. So I'm going to get rid of those 2s now. So again, those are just designating all the spots where in theory a picture should not be able to move, or an event should not be able to move. So I'll get rid of those. Okay, go back to events. Now, so let's start with where I clicked on here first. So this event has 1 page. That's it. It is, same as characters, action button. You have to click on it to activate it. Just the spirit sitting there. And you're going to see a lot of these things that I've shown in previous videos. So set movement route to player, repeat, that freezes them in place, right? So no actual movements, you're setting the player, repeat, and then, but you're not really, it's just going to loop through, not moving at all. And that freezes the player so that the little sprite, can't move around. Then I'm going to show text. Let's make the bear move around. So again, just the show text option, right? And then this show picture, this is that chessboard. So first thing I do is put that big chessboard on top of the screen. So so it looks like there's squares to move. And this is just a show picture, right? So you pick the picture, you pick your image, whatever it is, right? Downloaded that. Every time you show a picture, you either choose upper left or center for where you're going to basically start doing the pixels of where the picture is going to show up. And then this, I put it at 0, 0 because I want it to be the whole screen anyway. And I messed around with the width and the height of the picture to make sure it fills the entire screen. And then again, opacity you can mess around with. That makes it the more you can see through it. And then blend, I've said this in previous tutorials, you can just mess around with that to see what it looks like. So this is just showing a picture. Then this is showing another picture, the evil Teddy, on top of the board. So, as you put pictures, the first picture you show is going to be, the bottom layer, if you will. If you put another picture, number 2, somewhere on top of the first picture, picture number 1, then the picture number 2 is going to show up on top. So this is just setting the picture number 2, evil Teddy, right? Evil Teddy, and he's going to be on the map somewhere, which is actually the chessboard now. And what I did was I just stuck the picture on there, saw where it was sitting on the chessboard, and then I just change the x and the y coordinate to make it look like, or to make it appear in the middle of a square. And again, you had to figure out what the width and the scale, the width and the height scale worked best. And so that was the first thing I did, was I said, okay, let me put the chessboard on, then let me put the teddy bear on, and make sure it's in the middle of a square, right? The middle of a starting square. Once I did that, I threw this evil book on there too, just because again I was going to experiment with collisions, right? Not allowing you to move to a spot that was occupied. But then I actually tested it somewhere else, so I didn't test it here on the chessboard. And again, I just chose the image, figured out how big I wanted it to be, and then I played around with the X and Y. These are pixels, right? The number of pixels in the entire map, and or the screen, I should say, because this one's going by screen. Um, and and just tested it to see where it sat. And if it didn't look right, I just modified the X and Y until it looked like it was in the middle of a square. So then it's waiting 60 frames because the first thing I wanted to do was just experiment with moving the teddy bear around and figuring out how many pixels I needed to change the X or Y to move it to the middle of another square. So this one is showing picture 2, that's Evil Teddy, and the movement. I'm sorry, this is not show picture. This is move picture. So this is move picture 2, and you have constant speed, slow start, slow end, slow start and end. I chose constant speed, and then again, you still have to set where the picture is going to, I guess, be set initially, upper left or center. You have to choose your X and Y, right? And of course, your width and scale and stuff stays the same. I chose wait for completion, and you get to do a duration. The lower this is, the faster the picture moves across the screen. So I put 40 here, which is 40 frames, which is 40 sixtieths of a second. So it's less than a second for it to move that distance. And so I had the 120x here. So it was changing from basically the Evil Teddy started at x of 15, and Evil Teddy is moving to an x of 120 pixels. Now I will just say this: um, this is different than the map, right? The map itself. A tile on the map is 48 by 48. It's 48 pixels by 48 pixels. The chessboard square is much different. So I actually calculated it out once I was messing around, um, where it was 105 pixels to move either on the X or the Y coordinates, right? The axis, to be in the middle of another square. So X, of course, if you subtract X, it moves you to the left. If you add X, if you add to the pixels, it moves it to the right. And on your Y axis, if you subtract from the Y, it moves you up. And if you add to the Y, it moves you down on the screen. And so what I had to do first was figure out how big were those squares, how big were those chessboard squares, and then add or subtract accordingly. And in this one, I'm just manually placing them. So then I did so that waited 60 seconds and then did it again. Move picture number 2, the bear, and I was just randomly deciding where I wanted to move them. And so the first time I just changed the x coordinate, so the bear moved to the right. Then this time I kept the x coordinate the same, and I changed the y coordinate, so the bear moved down. And then wait 60 frames so the player could see, the movement and the stop. Move picture 2 again, and this time the x coordinate went up. Okay, so the bear's moving to the right, but the y coordinate increased as well. So therefore, the bear, this is moving the bear diagonally right and down, and then wait 60 frames and then do it one more time. Move picture number 2, and then it's going back. The X is back to 120. The Y increased to 240. Okay, so again, this is moving diagonally. And so that was the first thing I did was I say, okay, where does Evil Teddy sit in the middle of a square? And then when I'm trying to move them around, not the player, but it's just automatically moving. How much do I have to change the X and the Y to put the picture of the bear in the middle of another square? And once you figure that out, you can just do simple adding and subtracting to move the bear around. So once the bear moves, that certain number of times, then I go, okay, wait a second. Now we want to let the player control the bear. So I have all these variables here. And the first set of variables is I put the evil book, the picture of the evil book, X and Y, and I never ended up moving that, so it really didn't matter. And I never ended up testing collision, so this really didn't matter. But it would be needed if you were going to do collision and make it where evil Teddy couldn't move on top of evil book, right? So then the next two are setting variables, evil Teddy X and evil Teddy Y, and I'm setting those to the current X and Y of evil Teddy, right? So up here, this is the last spot that the picture moved to. So I'm setting the X and Y coordinates to those pixels, 120 and 240. Then and then what this is doing is this is actually increasing or subtracting from those X and Y coordinates so that instead of manually punching in these changes in the pixels, we can just subtract and designate the picture by variable. So up here, and actually, see, this is direct designation. You're actually putting the number of pixels in the X and Y. Down here, you're designating it with variables. So once we've set the X and Y of Evil Book, which isn't going to change, then we do Teddy, which was the last spot. Then this one is we're increasing the variable for Evil Teddy X, the X coordinate, adding 105, because that's how much it was needed to move one square to the right. And then this one is subtracting 80 from the y, because that's how much is needed to move the picture down. I'm sorry, if you're subtracting, it's moving up. It's moving up on the screen. So essentially, that chessboard, the X is changing by 105 to get the picture to another middle of the square, either left or right, and the Y is changing by 80. So again, here it's move picture, number 2, constant speed, and we're using variables instead. Instead of doing direct pixels, we're doing the variables. So we can do math inside the variables. Still wait for completion, still movement of a constant speed of 40 frames. So then you're going to wait 60 frames just to, again, let the player see. It's 1 second. Let them see what's happening. And so that moves one more time. So again, I was experimenting with directly designating the pixels and then designating where the picture needs to be by a variable. So then show text, why don't you control the bear? And now it's going to move into the menu-based choices of straight line or diagonal. I put a label here, choice, because we're going to actually jump back to this label later on to do something. So so I put that there. We'll see it. And again, I mentioned when I was doing the demo, there is a way where you can have more than 6 menu choices, but it requires, well, I don't have a plugin to do it, so it would require using a script. And I was too lazy to actually do that this time. I've done it before, but you'd have to use a script to basically go beyond the 6 choices in your show choices option. And I was just lazy, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it the easy way. I'm going to do show choices, straight line, and diagonal. Right? So do my two show choices here, and then based on what you pick, we'll split it up some more. So when it's straight line, then the choices you're going to have are, right, up 1 square, down 1 square, right 1 square, left 1 square. Okay, and then for each one of those, you're going to have to do your math. So when you choose straight line and when you choose up 1 square, then the variable evil Teddy Y is going to subtract 80 from that. Why? Because again, if you're moving up, then the Y is getting smaller, right? So up here, this corner up here is 0, 0 for a tile, and at the very top up here, at the very, very corner, it's um, it's 0, 0 for pixels, right? So as you go across to the right, the X is increasing, and as you go down, the Y is increasing for both pixels or tiles, right? So if you haven't, I'm sure you've seen that before, but when I click here, I'm on tile 0, 0. When I click here, I'm on tile 10, 1. So 10, actually this would be 11. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? So, wait, yeah, because actually we start counting with 0. So this is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's actually 11 tiles, but we start with 0. And then this is 0 and 1. And then this is a Y of 2, Y of 3, Y of 4. Okay. So, so for each one of those, where are we? So for each one of those, you have to do the math and say, okay, I'm moving up by 1 square, then I'm going to subtract 80 from Evil Teddy's Y coordinates. I don't have to change the X because they're moving up, so X isn't changing. So I'm going to do that move picture, number 2, and I'm going to use, again, the designation with variables, so X and Y. And all the other stuff stayed the same. And now this is one of those things where you can copy and paste. You just got to make sure that you change the correct. This is going to stay the same. This move picture is going to stay the same for all these options. You just have to figure out, are you changing the X or the Y or both? So when you move down by 1 square, then the Y is increasing by 80. And then this is copy and pasted. You're using the variables to designate where to actually move the picture. And when you move right, now we have to switch to the X. X is increasing by 105, but Y is not changing because we're moving to the right. And again, this stays the same. This and this and this are all the same. And then when we move left, then we change the X, we subtract 105 from it. And then this stays the same. Okay, so these are essentially moving up, down, right, or left. When diagonal, then you've got your choices of up and right, up and left, down and right, down and left. And when you're up and right, that means that X is going to increase by 105 because you're moving to the right, and Y is going to decrease by 80 because you're moving up. So you have to change both of those variables with your math, and then this stayed the same as it was up here. It's the exact same thing. It's moving picture 2, and it's moving it to the variables, the variable coordinates. When you are going up and left, then the X is subtracting 105 for the pixels because again you're moving to the left, and the Y is subtracting by 80 because you're moving up, and then this stays the same. Down and right, same thing. You're increasing the X, increasing the Y because you're moving right and down. This stays the same. And then down and left, you're going to decrease the X, increase the Y. So again, we're talking the number of pixels. And then this stays the same because you're moving it to the variables. And then that's your choice, right? You've chosen it once, which direction you want to go. So then again, experimenting. I'm just experimenting with how to do this. Do you want to move the bear again? Show choices, yes or no. When yes, it's gonna trigger. Do you want to move straight or diagonal? And then it's gonna jump back to that label choice, which is up here, right? So I didn't want to repeat this because this doesn't make sense to repeat that. So down here, when you choose yes, I gave it a new show text, and then jumped back here to the actual choices where your menus are straight line or diagonal, and then you go through it again. If you say no, right, I don't want to do this again, then we're going to keep moving our experiment forward. And this one is going, well, why don't you move the bear around using the arrow keys? So now it's not menu driven, right? It's no longer menu driven. It's going to be by pressing the up, down, right, and left arrow. So we have a loop. So the loop here is going to basically allow you to press those arrow keys and until we get to the thing that's going to break the loop. So, whoops, sorry. So here we are in the loop. First conditional branch inside the loop. If the button up is being pressed, so this is conditional branch on page 4, if the button, and you've got these to choose from. I would really like there to be more, and I've looked around. From what I've seen, it's not easy to add other options without a plugin, but so you can use these to begin with. So if the up button is being pressed, so you see over here, based on whether or not a particular button is being pressed versus is triggered versus is repeated, right? So if it's being pressed, then we're going to change our variable, right? Y, because we're moving up. So Y is going to decrease by 80, right? We're moving up. This is the same. So we're moving picture 2 with using the variables. And then we're going to take a variable move count and we're going to increment it up by 1. We're going to add 1 to it. Because remember we said you're going to move 4 times. So we're going to use a variable to track how many times we've moved. So if they press the up button, then it moves and your move count goes up by 1. If they press the down button, which is the same option as it was before, just a different key, then we change the appropriate variable. So again, Y is increasing by 80. This is the same because we're still moving picture 2 to the variable coordinates. And again, we're going to increment. We're going to add 1 to the movement count. And then the other 2 options are the same. If button left is being pressed, then we've got to change the X coordinate. And we're going to subtract 105 pixels. This stays the same. This is the same option. If the button, if the right button is being triggered, right? So this is up arrow, down arrow, left arrow, right arrow. If the right arrow is being pressed, then we're going to change the X pixels by 105, the X coordinate by 105 pixels. This stays the same because we're moving the picture to the variable X and Y. And then this increments by 1. So each time you can only choose 1 and it's only going to be increased by 1. And then it immediately does a conditional check. If my variable movement count is equal to 4, then break the loop. Stop doing what you're doing. But the first time through, of course, it won't be. So it'll skip this. It'll check, but it won't be 4. So then it drops down. It says repeat above. So that means it jumps up to the loop and it goes back through again. It's waiting, right? It's watching for you to press a button. And so once you've done that 4 times, then it's going to drop down here. Okay, well, let's do something else. So show text, let's try moving on the bear speed. The bear can move 4 squares, and if you're done moving, press the shift key. Because again, I was trying to test, can I end the movement early? So you get you have a movement speed of 6, but I want to stop moving after 2. Sure, you can do that. So we're going to have another label, more, because we're going to jump back here at a different time. So I put another label here. So now we reset our movement count variable to 0 because we're going to use it again. We used it up here, but now we're going to use it down here. So movement count 0. Now we have a new loop, and this is doing the whole arrow keys again, right? So if button up is pressed, button down, button left, button right. Okay, but now it added the shift button. So these are exactly the same as they were above. So this is a simple copy and paste. Actually, I copied and pasted the entire loop, and then I just changed what I needed. So this is the same as it was before, right? You're changing the X, you're moving them to moving the picture by the variable, incrementing the movement count variable by 1. This is the same as it was above. This is the same as it was above. This is the same as it was above. This is added. This is added to the loop. So if the button shift is being pressed, then we show text. The bear can still move. Do you want to end? So we're confirming. Show choices, yes and no. When yes, so I do want to end, that breaks the loop. And I'm going to drop down here. When no, so I decided I don't want to end, then you just drop down here. It checks, is the movement count equal to 4, which if you haven't moved 4 times, it won't be. And so it'll drop down here to repeat above, and it'll jump back up to the beginning of this loop. If the movement count is 4, because you've pressed 4 buttons, then it'll break the loop and it'll drop down to here. Okay, so now more text. Okay, let's see. The bear's moved as far as it can. Do you want to try moving the bear again? Yes or no? Show choices. When yes, then another flavor text, make the bear your puppet. And this is where we jump back to that label more, because we're jumping back to the beginning of this loop. So we're jumping back here, resetting our movement count, right? Because we're going to reuse that to track how many times we've moved. And we're back to our loop. When no, meaning I don't want to do this again, then we set the player free. So set movement route of the player, no actual commands, no repeat. We clear the picture, we clear all the pictures from the screen. So we clear the chessboard, we clear the evil teddy, and we clear the evil book, and we're done. We exit. Okay? So that was I didn't actually build all of this at one time. I started up here just doing the simple chessboard and orienting the evil teddy picture, moving it around, seeing how many pixels I needed to move it by, then doing the menu driven choices, then doing the arrow choices, right? Do the arrow of 4 times, and then doing the arrows where you could interrupt the movement early, and that was it. And I actually came back and added some of this later. So I built the first part of it, went and did something else, and came back. So that's the first event. So then what? Well, the next thing I did was I built this event and this event. So all this event does is when it's below the characters. So when the player steps on it, when the player touches it, it's gonna trigger, and all it's doing is it's turning on a switch. Okay, that's all it's doing, turning on a switch. And the switch is called Show Me a Monster. I just reused it because I was lazy, because I got a bunch of switches already. So I just reused this switch, and that's all this event does. But what happens is this event up here, which has no image on page 1, it's just sitting there waiting to be activated. So page 1 doesn't have anything. It's below characters. It's action button. It's no picture. Player can't see it. Player can't interact with it. They can't even move to the square anyway. The second page is when that switch, Show Me a Monster, is turned on. And that's what that other event did. It turned this switch on. So that means this page is now the highest page where the conditions are met. So it starts running. And it's parallel. So that means it starts to run while other events are running. Okay, so it's running in parallel. Still below characters, still no picture. It's just running there without the player knowing it. So it's running in parallel. That means these things immediately start doing something. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to freeze the player again. So the player was released before, now they're frozen again. I'm changing the player transparency to on, meaning the player disappears. The player sprite disappears, because I'm replacing it with the picture of Evil Teddy and squished Reed on the map. So then, after I turn the transparency on, I'm showing the picture again, number 5, which is Reed. Okay, and it's the full body picture of Reed, right? And he's huge. So he's picture number 5. It's him. I'm using the center instead of upper left. These are just the X and Y coordinates to put him where I wanted him on the map. And now this is where it gets a little easier than the chessboard, because now what I'm doing is I want him to be appearing in a tile on the map. And each one of these tiles is 48 pixels by 48 pixels. So you can essentially multiply it out and say, okay, let's do this really quick. I can't remember if I also added 24 to it to make sure he's in the middle of the screen. But 456 divided by 48 is, 9.5. So basically what I did was because I'm using the center, which maybe I should have used upper left, but I use center. So I figured out which tile I wanted him to be on. I multiplied the number of tiles by 48, right? Or one less tile by 48, and then added 24 to it. So what I mean is I wanted him to be here. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I multiplied 9 by 48. Okay, so 9 times 48 equals 432. And then I added 24 to it, and that's 456. So that's the x coordinate. Okay, that's how I did that. Again, experimenting, trying to figure out how this is going to work. So I did the math for the x and y to get him to be where I wanted. I kept playing with the width and the height of the scale to make it so he would fit inside of a square. I mean, this is not optimal, right? I mean, this is not the best way to do this, but I was experimenting. Evil Teddy fit a little better. So I had the same Evil Teddy image, picture number 4. I did the math for the how many pixels for the X and how many pixels for the Y, and what width and scale or width and height to get the Teddy appearing in the middle of a tile. Okay, so that's what these two things are doing. Then what I did was 2 more variables, map width x and map height y is equal to the actual game map width and the game map height. And essentially that's under, this is using the script. So the map width x variable is set to the script $game capital map dot width in empty parentheses. That's the width of the map. And then this is getting the height of the map. So $game capital map dot height and then in parentheses. And when I was building this, I took all these out, but when I was building this, I actually had show text to show me what's the value of this variable. So once I set it, I said, show me the value. So I knew exactly what it was doing, right? Because that's the only way I could understand it. And then I just removed them once I knew what it was doing. I had the game show me the text when I was testing it. And then once I understood what was happening, I just took it out. So then I'm having the enemy position X and Y. That's Evil Teddy. So Evil Teddy's the enemy. So again, setting the variables, X and Y variable coordinates, to the pixels, 408 and 360, which is right here. That's the Evil Teddy. And then read location X and Y for variables. That's the pixels 456 and 360, which is up here. So basically, I'm setting the variables to the X and Y coordinates of the pictures because we're going to move the pictures around. Have a label here of again because we're going to jump back here. Then I have a control variable for read speed is randomly between 4 and 6, simply because as I tested it multiple times, I wanted it to change. So we're setting the speed of read, and then we're setting the speed of Evil Teddy. So again, Evil Teddy speed in a variable set to a random of 3 to 5. Why did I do that? Well, because I wanted to test the piece of how do I figure out who gets to move first? Because the whole point of this is having a turn-based movement experiments for, like, say, a combat system. So I was like, you know what? While I'm doing this, let's figure out how to tell who gets to move first. So once I set their speeds, I just messed around with this and said, okay, conditional branch. If read speed, if the variable read speed is greater than or equal to Evil Teddy speed, then we're going to have read go first. And I just said greater than or equal to. I said, read will get the tie. He'll get to go for the tie. And so what do we do? Well, I want to put text on the screen. So I'm using that plugin, the plugin text picture that I've highlighted in previous videos, and it lets you input text. So read moves, and then I'm using a variable /v in brackets 271, the number of the variable, and that is read speed. So it's just going to use a variable to show read speed. And then when you're using this plugin, it tells you you have to show a blank picture, which is actually going to make the text that you inputted a picture to display on the screen. So you have to set another picture number, figure out where it's going to be oriented, upper left or center, what your X and Y pixels are, where do you want it to show, scale, width, height, right? You just have to mess around. And literally, when I do this, I'll plug in some numbers, do a play test, see where it shows up, stop, change the numbers, and then go from there. Okay, so if read speed is equal to or greater than Evil Teddy's, read's going to go first. So we're going to show read's moves on the upper left of the screen, and then we're going to call a common event, read movement. So we'll go to that in a minute. And then once that common event is done, right, it comes back and it turns a switch on. Read turn complete is on. Okay, so we'll check out the common event in a minute. But this conditional branch has an else. So what that's doing is it's saying conditional branch. If read speed is greater than or equal to Evil Teddy, do this. Else, that means read speed is less than Evil Teddy's, then we're going to do the opposite. The plugin command, we're going to do the same thing, but the text is going to say Evil Teddy moves /v brackets 277 because that's Evil Teddy speed. And we're going to have a different picture, picture number 7, right? In theory, I could use picture number 6, because if they're not on the screen at the same time, you could, in theory, use the same picture number. It's blank. It's set to the same location, 15, 15, 15, 15, right? And then the common event Evil Teddy movement is called, because read movement, common event, is different from Evil Teddy movement by a little bit. They're almost identical, but they're off by a little bit. And then if we've done Evil Teddy's common event and we're done with that and we come back, then a switch is turned on, Evil Teddy turn complete. Okay, because that's how we're going to then say who goes after that. These two right here, this is determining who gets to go first the first time, right? Then it's going to do another conditional branch. If read turn complete is on, well, that means that read went first. So we're going to do the part up here that we didn't do last time. So this is like a copy and paste. Evil Teddy's moves, right, which is exactly the same as this. The picture, which is exactly the same as this. And then common event Evil Teddy movement, exactly the same as this. We just don't have to have any switches anymore, okay, because we're not coming back to this. I'm moving on after this, so I'm not doing anything with the switches. But again, this has an else branch. Else, that means if read turn complete is not on, it's off, that means read didn't go first, then we're going to copy and paste from above. We're going to show read's movements, right? So this is a copy and paste from up here. From here to basically here is copied and pasted right down here. So read's movement, show the picture, and call the common event read movement. Okay, so that's what these parts are doing here, is figuring out who gets to go first based on their speed, and then whoever didn't go the first time gets to go the next time. It waits 60 seconds. So it waits 60 frames, 1 second. Then it says, hey, do you want to do it again? Do you want to test this again? Yes or no? Show choices. When yes, it jumps back to the label again. So it jumps up to here so that it can reset the speeds and then check who gets to go first. And then call the common events. When no, it says, okay, well, let's try something different. Let's try moving with the directional arrows. And it gives direction. You click on the arrows or click on that escape icon in the middle, and then it turns self-switch A on, which will advance the page. So before we do that, let's go back to the common event for read movement and Evil Teddy movement, because that's where we're jumping to. So over here, we have read movement. So what's happening here is this is being called by that event. We have a label here because we're going to jump back to that in a certain instance. So we have a label starts off. Then we have a show text. Read can move, basically read speed in tiles, right? It shows you how many moves read can do based on his speed. Then it's going to take the two variables, read starting x and read starting y. So the x and y of read's starting position. And we're setting that to be read's location x and read's location y. Why are we doing this? Well, because I wanted to build in the option of, um, well, a couple things. One, I was testing uh, comparing where they started versus where they end up, but also if I want to do the reset where you say, hey, I don't want to keep those moves, I want to go back to where I started. Well, you need read starting position x and y to do that. So we set those variables first, and then and this read x location and read y location, those are the other variables from earlier, right? In this event over here, we already set those using the pixels. So then we're setting read's starting speed to read speed. Why? Because if we decide that we don't want to keep the movement, we have to reset. And when we jump back here, we don't want a new speed. We want the original speed, right? So we want to do anything, or we don't want any change speed. We want the original speed the way it was. So once we've done that, we have our loop. Okay, so we start a loop, and you see a label in here. We're going to jump back to this, choose movement. This is going to allow us to move back in the menu. So when I click back, it lets me to go back to my menu choice. So I start my loop, have a label here, choose movement, show text. How do you want read to move? And your choices are straight or diagonal. When straight, we've kind of seen this before. However, we're gonna do things a little different here. So when straight, you have a choice of up, down, left, right, back, or end. When up, we're going to basically set destination X to read location X, because if you're moving up, the X is not changing. And then we're going to set destination Y to, this is the variable 135 minus 48. Well, what's variable 135? Well, 135, what is variable 135? It doesn't show up here, right? So, well, if I can't remember, I can do this, and this isn't going to tell me, right? Because it's in a script. But if I really want to, I will just go back to my control variables, and I will just check what is 135. That is read location Y. So read location Y, read location X. 134 is read location X, 135 is read location Y. So what I'm doing here is all this is doing is this is taking the value of read location Y and subtracting 48 from it, because we're going to move one tile. Okay, so this is very similar to what was in the other event, but it's a little bit different, because now we're looking at the destination. Where is the destination going to be? So that's what these are doing. We're going to set the destination coordinates, X and Y. Now we're going to do conditional branch check here. Now this is a nested conditional branch. That means there's multiple conditional branches that are being checked. You could do this with a script and check them both on one line. But again, I was a little lazy. I wanted to do it the way that I confidently know how to do it, instead of messing around with the script at this time. So if destination Y, that means where I'm moving to, if that's the same as the enemy position Y, that means Evil Teddy. And if destination X, where is Reed moving to, is equal to enemy position X, then what this means is if both of these are true, that means that you're trying to move Reed on top of Evil Teddy. And we don't want that. So it's going to show text. Reed can't move to that tile. And then it's going to jump to label choose movement. So it makes you jump back here to choose again. How do you want it to move? Straight, diagonal. Okay. And it does that just on the choice for up. And then if this is not true, meaning that Reed's destination is not the same as Evil Teddy, then it's going to move the picture. So move picture 5, which is Reed, and use the variables destination X and destination Y. So actually move Reed to the spot that you said you were going to move him to. Okay? And that completes if you choose the up direction. So guess what? You're going to do something almost exactly the same for the down, the left, the right. Okay? And all you have to do is just change how much you're modifying the X and the Y. So when we choose down, we have our destination X. Where are you moving to? Reed's location's not changing, right? It's being set to Reed's location X. You have to change the Y to, only this time, instead of subtracting 48, you're adding 48 to Reed location Y. And I didn't highlight this, but I've done it in previous things. You're using the script. It's $gain capital variables dot lowercase value in parentheses 135. That's the variable number. That's Reed location Y, and then you can do math plus 48. Okay, so you're doing math inside there. And then this is exactly the same as it was above. If destination Y is equal to enemy position Y, if destination X is equal to enemy position X, that means you're trying to move Reed on top of Evil Teddy. You can't do that. And then jump back to choose movement. If this is not true, then move picture 5 and move it according to the destination X and Y that you set. And then these, again, I copied and pasted these and just manipulated these values. So when left, make sure this time you're changing the X value, right? Destination X is going to be Reed location X minus 48. So it's the same variable, only it's the same script, only it's variable 134 minus 48. And this time destination Y is set to Reed location Y because the Y axis is not changing, right? Because you're staying on the same axis. This is exactly the same as it was the previous two times. Check the destination, Y and X, and if it's the same as Evil Teddy, can't move that way. If it's not the same, then go ahead and move the picture to destination X and destination Y. Right is the only thing changing with this are possibly these, right? So now instead of subtracting 48 when you move left, you're adding 48 by moving right. Y stays the same. This is exactly the same as it was the previous 3 times. This is exactly the way it was the previous 3 times because you're moving picture 5 to the variable destination X and destination Y. Then when they choose back, saying, I don't want to, I said I wanted to move straight, but I really don't want to move straight. I want to move diagonal. When back, jump to label choose movement. So that jumps us way up here, which gives you a choice to do your menu again, straight or diagonal. Okay. And then when end turn, right, you have a choice of end turn instead of moving all the tiles you get to, then we're going to do a conditional branch. If Reed's speed is greater than 0, right, that means he still has moves left because we're actually subtracting from Reed's speed in this in the way I built this. So then we're going to have a text. Reed still has / variable 271 moves left. Are you sure you want to end? Show choices, yes or no. When yes, go ahead and break the loop. Jump down here. Keep moving on in the event. When no, jump to that label, choose movement, and you can go back to your menus. So it's going to double check. So if Reed's speed is actually 0, right, it's just automatically going to end up down here. Okay, just going to end up down here. Because because we haven't finished the loop yet, because down here is the diagonal choices. Okay, we're still inside that loop. So this is getting us out of the loop if we say let's end turn, and he still has moves left. Okay, so now we're still inside our loop. we're going to do the diagonal choices. So when you choose in the menu diagonal, you get up left, up right, down left, down right, back, or end turn. And when up left, it's copied and pasted from the previous things above. You just got to make sure you change the correct values for your X and Y. So if you're moving diagonally, your X and your Y are going to be changing by some value. So when you move up and left, your X is subtracting 48 and your Y is subtracting 48. So destination X, destination Y for variables, you're using the script to identify the variable 134, read location X, subtract 48, 135, read location Y, minus 48. This is exactly the same as it was in the straight line options. And then this is exactly the same as it was in the straight line options. Okay. Then when you move right, again, copied and pasted. You just got to make sure you change these appropriately. Destination X, this time you're adding 48 pixels to the X. This time you're subtracting 48 from the Y. Okay, these are pixels, remember? Each tile is 48 by 48 pixels. This is exactly the same, and this is exactly the same. So then when you choose down and left, again, you just got to make sure you're subtracting or adding the right amount. If your X is being subtracted by 48, your Y is being added by 48. This stays exactly the same. This stays exactly the same. When you choose down and to the right, again, your X is adding 48. Your Y is adding 48. This stays the same. This stays the same. So it's a lot of copying and pasting. When back, it's the same as it was the last time with the other option menu. So you're jumping to label choose movement. When end turn, this is copied and pasted. This is exactly the way it is from the previous time. Check to see if read speed is greater than 0. If so, hey, are you sure you want to end? Yes or no. When yes, break the loop. When no, jump to that label choose movement. Okay. So there's a lot of copying and pasting there. Now, after it does all that, right? After it does all that, then what's going to happen is, you notice we're still inside that loop. The repeat above it, we're still inside that loop. So here, we're going to take read location X and set it to destination X. Why? Because read is moved. So we had a destination. You could move to it. So now the picture has moved. And so now the read's location is the same as what the destination X was. Same thing here. Read's location Y is the same as what the destination Y was. So we're going to set those. We're going to set read location X and read location Y to the destination X and Y. Because again, destination X and Y is going to get changed the next time we do something. We're going to subtract 1 from read speed, because this is how, when I first started testing, I was seeing how many times read could move. So we're going to subtract 1 from read speed, right? Very simple. Variable, subtract 1. Then we're going to do the plugin command to show the text read how many read moves, right? Read moves and the number. This is copied and pasted from somewhere else. It's going to show it up on the screen. And then it's going to check conditional branch. If read speed is equal to 0, that means there's no more moves. Then we're going to show text. Read has no moves left. Do you wish to keep these moves, or do you want to start over? Show choices. Keep, start over. When keep, then just break the loop. You're done. You moved him. You're keeping the moves, and now you're done. You're going to drop down here and basically be done with this event, this common event. When you want to start over, then we're going to take read's speed and set it to read's starting speed. Remember, because I said we had to remember what read's starting speed was, because up here we're subtracting from read's speed somewhere. I can't remember. Here it is. We were subtracting from it. So, and that's just because of the way I started experimenting with this. I changed it later on another part of the event. So we're going to reset read speed to read starting speed, right? That's what it was the first value. This is a copied and paste. We're moving the picture to read starting X and read starting Y. And when I say copy and paste, I mean I copied and pasted and then I just changed the variable, right? This was set at the very beginning of the comment event. Where did read start out? So now we can move him back there. Then we show the picture of how many moves read has on the screen. And this is copied and pasted. And then we're setting the variables read location X is set to read starting X, right? So basically we're resetting everything so that we can start over again. And then once we do that, we're going to jump to label start. So we jump all the way back to the top. It's as if we didn't even do this comment event the first time because we didn't want to keep our moves. However, right, and then this is the end of our, that big long loop. So that loop goes from here all the way down here to the bottom. That's one big long loop. Okay, one big long loop. Okay, and then once we ultimately get out of that loop, we're going to erase picture 6, which is how many moves read has, because we're done moving read. And once we do that, that comment event is over. Well, we also saw that the event that we came here from sends us to evil Teddy movement. Well, guess what? It is almost identical to read movement. You just have to make sure you're changing some variables. So you still have the label start. Now you show your text. Evil Teddy can move how many, which is Evil Teddy's speed. Now we're dealing with Evil Teddy's X and Y coordinates, and we're setting that to enemy position X and Y, because Evil Teddy is the enemy. Now we're setting Evil Teddy's speed, his starting speed, to Evil Teddy's speed. So before, with Reed, we were doing these things for Reed. Now we're doing it for Evil Teddy. Then we have our big, massively long loop. And guess what? A lot of it stays the same. So we're still going to say, how do you want Evil Teddy to move? Choices, straight, diagonal, right? When straight, up, down, left, right, back, and when up. Now, destination X and destination Y stays the same. But now instead of using read location X and read location Y, we're using enemy position X and enemy position Y. So this script, $game capital variables dot value 33 is enemy position Y. And we're subtracting 48. So you can actually copy the comment event for read, paste it to a new comment event, and then just as you go through row by row, change the variables that need to be changed. So here, this is going to be changed the first time. Destination Y is actually set to read location Y. I'm sorry, no. If destination Y, where you want to move Evil Teddy, is the same as read location Y, and if destination X is the same as read location X, then we're going to show text Evil Teddy can't move there, jump to label choose movement. Otherwise, because now you can't move on top of read. Otherwise, move the picture. Move picture 4 to the destination X and Y. This is actually the same as from Reed's comment event. And then once you do this, just like last time, just like with the Reed comment event, right? Once you do this, how come it's not doing that? Oh, I should be able to do it. Once you do this part for when up, right? Once you do that, then it's going to be the same for the rest. You just have to change the X and the Y values. Okay, so when down, we're going to make sure that destination X, enemy position X is staying the same, but destination Y, we're adding 48 to the enemy position Y. This is exactly the same as this up here. And this is exactly the same as this up here, just like it was for the read movement. And then when left, you have to make sure you're changing your X and Y appropriately. So enemy position X is being subtracted by 48, enemy position Y staying the same. Again, for your destination X and Y, this is exactly the same as it was above. This is the same as it was above. When right, then your X is, you're increasing it by 48. Your Y stays the same. This same, this same. When back, choose movement. That's exactly the same as it was for reads. When end turn, you have to change this a little bit because it was what was read speed, but now it's Evil Teddy speed greater than 0. Change your text. Evil Teddy still has moves left. Yes, no, break loop, jump to label, choose movement. So that's the same as reads. And then you repeat for the diagonal. So this starts out the same as reads. When left, again, your destination X and destination Y, you're using Evil Teddy's X and Y. You're using the script, and you're in this instance up and left, you're subtracting 48 from both of them. This is exactly the same as it was up above, and so is this. When right, make sure you're adding or subtracting the correct pixels from your X and Y. This is the same, this is the same. When down and left, again, make sure you're adding or subtracting your pixels. This is the same, this is the same. And down and right, make sure you're, in this instance, down and right, you're adding pixels to both the X and Y. This is the same, this is the same. When back, it's the same as it was before. And turn, it's going to do the same check as it did up above. What's Evil Teddy speed? Are you sure? Yes or no? Break loop, jump to choose movement. And then this is very similar to read's movement, read movement common event. Only instead of read, you're doing enemy position X is set to destination X. Enemy position Y is set to destination Y. And then Evil Teddy speed, subtract 1. And then we're doing our plugin to show Evil Teddy's moves on the screen. We're doing this conditional branch to check if Evil Teddy speed is 0. And this is, again, very, very similar to reads, just referencing Evil Teddy instead. Still has moves left. Do you want to keep them or no? Keep or start over. When keep, break the loop. When start over, then we're going to do this for Evil Teddy. Evil Teddy speed is set to Evil Teddy starting speed. And then we're going to actually move Evil Teddy back, the picture of Evil Teddy, back to the starting X and starting Y. We're going to reset the words on the screen that says how many moves Teddy has. We're going to basically, and that's setting the picture, the words on the screen. Then we're going to do our variables. Enemy position X and enemy position Y are set to Evil Teddy starting X and Evil Teddy starting Y. So again, we're basically resetting to start over. Jump back to label start, so that jumps us all the way back to the top. Otherwise, we're going to break the loop, right? And then down here is our big loop, which makes us repeat until we're all done, right? Until we've moved enough or we've decided to quit. And then when we finally get done, we've moved as many times as the speed allows. We erase picture 7, which is the Teddy's movement, right? And we're done with this common event. So these two common events are very, very similar. You build reads, and then you basically change the variables and the show text references to be Evil Teddy's instead of reads. And then we're back here. So this is where this is the page 2 was calling those common events. When we're all done, right, we're all done with that, it says, hey, let's do something different. I'm going to put directional arrows on the screen. I'm going to put this escape icon. I'm going to turn self switch A on, and then that's going to allow me to move to the next page. So self switch A is now on. That means this page is the highest page where the conditions are met. It's still running in parallel, right? Still running in parallel. And now what it's doing, we're still moving pictures too. Now all of this here is showing those arrows on the lower right-hand corner so that you can click on them. So the first part, plugin command text picture, we're setting it to an icon. And the icon is 2452, that's the icon I wanted to choose, and I did switch to a much bigger icon option that a user by the name of Avery has on rpgmakerweb.com. And in fact, I'll show you that in case you've never seen it, because this is a really, really cool um, icon list. Okay, so rather than the small default list, these are all the icons that you can download from, again, a user called Avery. And there's some spaces you can fill in too. So there's more spaces you could fill in here. And these are all these icons. This is really, 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 really cool. There's a lot of extra options here. Okay, so, and we were on page 3. So this plugin command shows that icon as text, and then this show picture 21 is actually making that show up on the screen way down in the lower right corner of the screen. And then around this icon are going to be arrows. So this is the plugin command button picture. I've highlighted this before in other tutorials. This allows you to click on a picture and call a common event. So you have to designate the picture you want, and then you have to designate the common event that you want to move that you want it to move to. Okay, and so the first one is picture number 21 is the I'm sorry, this is the it's blank, but basically this picture 21 goes with this, which is the icon. Okay, and then this is making it so that the icon can be clicked on. So the icon is set to picture 21. This is making it so picture 21 can be clicked, and it's calling common event 94. And then we have arrow up. Okay, arrow up. Very simple, right? I just these are not the fanciest. They don't look great, but they're usable to test. So picture 10 is an arrow up. Again, I had to play around with the X and Y pixels to get them to show where I wanted to around the center. And then you have the plugin command. Picture 10 can now be clicked on, and it calls common event 95. Picture 11, down arrow. Again, have to play with the X and Y of the pixels to get it to show where you want it. And then the plugin button picture. Picture 11, the down arrow, can be clicked on, call common event 96. And all the rest of these are the same. Arrow left, and then the picture clicking. Arrow right, arrow up left, arrow up right, arrow down left, arrow down right. And you're just changing the number of the picture, the image in the picture, the X and Y of the pixels to make sure they're showing where you want them on the screen. And then this is basically the same, except you're changing the picture number to match whatever the picture is, and you're changing the common event because they're all calling different common events. And then this waits 10 frames and then it reruns again. This runs basically 6 times a second. That's how fast this runs. This runs basically 6 times a second, waiting for you to click on an arrow. Okay, so that's all this page is doing, running in parallel. It runs until you tell it to stop. Okay, and it's waiting for you to click on these pictures. Now, what are these common events? So we're almost done. I'm wrapping up with this, and I'll do a separate tutorial for moving the events. So this tutorial is all going to be about moving the pictures, basically. So we go back to the common events, and we go to, we have exit movement. So this was what happens if you press that escape button in the middle. And if you press that, this common event is called 94. This turns off the switch, show me a monster. So control switches, show me a monster is off. This script is the script I've used before in other tutorials. It is turning off the self switch on map 29, which is the map we're on here. This is map 29. Map 29. Event 3, which is the map movement start. It's this one. And it's self switch A. And because it's false, that means we're turning it off. If it was true, it would be turning it on. So we're turning off that self switch, right? And I've highlighted this script before. $game, capital self, capital switches, dot set, capital value, open parentheses, open brackets. 29 is the map, comma, 3 is the event, comma, in single quotes, A, capital A is the self switch, so it's A, B, C, or D, closing brackets, comma, false for off, true for on, closing parentheses, and then a semicolon. So that is turning off self switch A in event 3. Then we're clearing all the pictures. So again, I've shown this in previous tutorials. $game, capital screen, dot clear, capital pictures, in parentheses. That clears all the pictures off the screen. If you didn't want to clear all the pictures, you'd have to do them one at a time. You'd have to do erase picture 1, erase picture 2, erase picture 3. Then we're setting the movement route of the player to set them free. So I've done this before in other tutorials. Player, no actual commands, no repeat. It sets the player free. They can now move. And then we're turning the transparency back on of the sprite because we took it away before. We turned the transparency on. Now we're turning it off. Change transparency off. Okay. And that is let's see, where is that? That is right here. Page 2, character, change transparency. Okay, if I have never seen that before. So if they click that middle section, the escape, it does this, and then it's done. And what is it actually doing? Well, over here, this switch was on, making this page active and runnable. This self switch was on, making this page active and potentially runnable. When we turn this off, this self switch off from that other event, if we didn't turn this switch off, this page would start to run. So we turn this switch off so that this page is inactive. Then the event turns this off so this page is inactive. And basically it drops it back here to the wait. It's waiting. So in theory, if we stepped on this again, it would activate that again and it would run it again. So we could rerun it. Now, this common event through this common event are all very, 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 very similar. So I'm going to quickly explain one, show the differences, and then we'll be done. So for basically moving the pictures. So when you click the arrow up, it's going to do a bunch of things. This is experimenting with more of those collision things. Spirit location X and spirit location Y. Those are the pixels of this dude, because I don't want them stepping on him. I don't want them moving onto him. Okay? So first we're going to get the X and Y coordinates in a variable pixels of that spirit. Then we're going to set Evil Teddy's starting X and Evil Teddy starting Y to enemy position X and Y, because this was Evil Teddy. Then we're going to do that destination again. Destination X, destination Y is being set to Evil Teddy, enemy position X, and then the math. Evil Teddy, enemy position Y, minus 48, because that's where we want to move to. And then this is building it in so we can check that region ID to see if Teddy can actually move there. So region ID X and region ID Y is set to the 283 and 284, which is destination X and destination Y, divided by 48. Because the region ID is based on the tile ID, 00, 01, 22. It's not based on pixels. So this is trying to convert the pixels of destination X and Y to an actual tile value. That's what this is doing. And I moved away from this because I was running into problems. I ended up solving the problem by making sure the map width and height were the same as the screen width and height. Anyway, so once we set all these variables, then it starts doing its check, because you've said you want to move up. You want to move up. And so first thing it does is it says, hey, if destination Y is equal to read location Y, and if destination X is equal to read location X, that means you're trying to move to read's location. And it's going to tell you, no, evil Teddy can't do that. Okay, because right now we're just moving evil Teddy. And then it's going to exit the event processing. And if it exits, it just goes back to that parallel event that's running. It's going to wait for you to click another arrow. So it checks this. Can I move there? If if it's not, if this is not true, then it goes down to the next part. And this is going to do that region ID. So get location info. Player region ID is set to region ID, and then region ID X and region ID Y. So get location information, the variable player region ID, go away FPS. The type is being set to region ID. You can set it to tile ID layers, event ID, terrain tag. We're doing it to region ID. And then instead of doing direct designation where you pick something on the map, you pick an actual spot on the map, we're setting it to the variable region ID X and region ID Y. You can also set it by character, right? You can actually set it to an event or to a player, but we're setting it by variables, okay? And so what's happening here, and this is located on, where is this? On page 3 of event commands, get location information. I always forget where that is. I have to look it up. So now what this is doing, it's saying, okay, let me get the region ID of region X ID and region Y ID, okay, which is actually the destination X and Y. So this is trying to say what's the region ID of where you're trying to move. So then it checks a conditional branch. If player region ID is equal to 2, right? Remember all those 2's on the map? If the region ID that you get from the destination you want to move to is a 2, then say, hey, you can't move there, and exit. And that just sends it back to the parallel event to wait for another arrow to be clicked. So this is not true. This is not true. So let's check the last thing. If destination X is equal to spirit location X, I think we saw this before, destination Y is equal to spirit location Y, then that means you're trying to move on top of that spirit. Teddy can't do that. Exit the event processing. Now, assuming that none of these are true, none of these are actual true, then it's going to move the picture. It's going to move Evil Teddy's picture to destination X and to destination Y. And then it's going to reset the variables. Enemy position X is equal to destination X. Enemy position Y is set to destination Y. Because the new position of the enemy, where you moved them, where you moved Evil Teddy, is where you wanted to move them, the destination X and Y. And then it exits. It exits the common event. And it goes back to the parallel event that's running, waiting for you to click an arrow. So all of the rest of these are copies and paste. You just have to tweak a few things. So for instance, arrow down. All of this is the same. Well, no, it's not all the same. The beginning part's the same, but you notice here it's subtract 48. This is add 48. All the rest is the same. This is the same. This is the same. This is the same. This is the same because you're moving it to destination X and destination Y. Okay? So the only thing you ended up changing was this here because of the direction you're moving. So what about left arrow? Well, same. Oh, this is subtracting by 48. So, and that's the X, whereas this was the Y, right? So arrow up, you're changing the Y. Arrow down, you're changing the Y. Arrow left, you're changing the X. All the rest of this should be the same. Arrow right, again, you're changing the X. All the rest of it's the same. Up and left, you're making sure you're changing both the X and the Y. And then arrow up right, changing X and Y. arrow down left, changing the X and the Y, arrow down right, changing the X and the Y. All the rest of it is the same. So once you write one common event, you can essentially copy and paste it and just make sure you're changing the correct X or the correct Y or both. And then that's all the common events that are being used there. So we're here and we're basically doing this, right? And we're moving around. And pretty much that's it. So now, how does this end here? So we did that, we did that, we did that, and then we went here, and oh, that's right. You basically are exiting, right? So I was confused for a second. I didn't build in a way in this event on page 3. I didn't build in a way to stop, right? The only way to stop is by clicking that button that says ESC escape. That's what's going to make you exit. And we already looked at that because when you click that exit movement, that's the thing that's turning off this event, and it's clearing our pictures and it's setting the player free and it's bringing the player sprite back onto the screen. And that's what basically makes us exit, and we're done with that. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there because this is a super long video already. And this was just explaining the initial moving the pictures of the teddy on the chessboard and all those different things, the menu choices, the arrow choices, the move as much as your speed will allow you, basically your resetting or your keeping and all that sort of stuff. And then this event over here was moving the pictures on the map instead of a chessboard. And that's much easier because the tiles are 48 by 48, and that chessboard, I had to figure out how many tiles it was across. I didn't know, and I was still learning and stuff like that. So it's easier to move them on the map here. And then I built in all those checks about, so you can't move off the borders and you can't move on to obstacles. You can't move on to the spirit. You can't move on to read and things like that. The only thing that again that was problematic was when my map was bigger than my screen. Then when I was doing that region ID check, when we were doing this part right here, checking the region ID, that was just not working right because the map I had was the same width as the screen, so that was working fine. So when I was moving right and left, no problems whatsoever. It was great. But the height of the map was different. And so when you moved up, I had to build in a scroll map. And when I moved down, I had to build in a scroll map. And when you scrolled the map, the actual pictures on the screen shifted without you wanting them to move. And then when it was doing its calculation of the region ID, it was off. It wasn't correct. And the way I kept testing it and testing it and testing it was I had the common event as I was going through it show text and say, okay, what's the actual region ID on the map, and what's the of the tile, and what's the region ID of destination X, and are they the same? And so I was making the game as I was testing it show me the values, and they weren't lining up. I no matter what I tried, I could not fix it. And so finally I gave up and said, you know what? Obviously I don't know enough to fix that right now. A workaround is two things. One, make sure your map is the same size as your playing screen, and then there's not a problem. Or do what I did the next thing was I started learning how to move events. There's pros and cons. I like moving the pictures a little bit. I like the way it looks in some instances, but I will say that it's a lot easier to move the events. It is a lot easier to move the events because you're not dealing with pixels anymore. So anyway, again, I'm going to stop here. I'll do a second part, and I'll make sure it's labeled as the event movement versus picture based movement on pixels. I hope this is helpful. If you're new like me or newer than I am or what have you, I hope you got something out of this that's helpful to you. Even if it's not about the picture stuff, maybe it's something about using loops or using conditional branches or doing, math in scripts or whatever. Hopefully you gain something valuable out of this. Um, if this is helpful, or if you at least appreciate the amount of effort that goes into doing this and the time, please consider liking, subscribing, getting notifications, leaving comments. If you do think you're going to use this, leave a comment. Let me know. I really like to hear back from people, and especially when it's something that it's helping people out. If you have a question about how to do this, I will try to help you. Leave a comment. I hope I explained everything really clearly. I hope. Hope I didn't skip anything. I don't think I did, but hopefully not. Um, and again, if this prompts you to figure out how to do other things, or if you see a flaw in this, and as I was going through it, because you know a bunch, feel free to point it out. Leave a comment, right? And because I'm still learning, and I'm really thankful when people share information with me. So again, hope this is helpful, folks. I will try to get the tutorial up for the event movement, which is going to be a lot shorter because it's only one event, and a lot of this is repeated. A lot of the concepts are repeated, so it'll be a part two. Anyway, have a great afternoon, everybody. And until I get something else up, until I can get more posted, happy gaming, happy game developing, and I will talk to everybody later. Bye.